has seen several months of pro-democracy protests over a bill that would have allowed extradition from Hong Kong to mainland China, and China appears to be tightening its grip. The protests began in June 2019. Now, China is proposing to introduce a new national security law which could be used to attack political activists in Hong Kong. There's a lot of important context to this China-Hong Kong issue that explains what actually is going on. It is important to remember that Hong Kong is significantly different from other Chinese cities. To understand this, you need to look at its history. Hong Kong was a British colony for more than 150 years. Part of the Hong Kong island was taken by UK after a war in 1842. Later, China also leased the rest of Hong Kong, that is, the new territories, to British for 99 years. It became a busy trading port and its economy took off in the 1950s as it became the manufacturing hub. The territory was also popular with migrants and descendants fleeing instability, poverty, or persecution in mainland China. Then, in the early 1980s, as the deadline for the 99-year lease approached and Britain and China began its talk on the future of Hong Kong, with the communist government in China arguing that all of Hong Kong should be returned to Chinese rule. The two sides signed a treaty in 1984 that Hong Kong would be returned to China in 1997 under the principle of one country, two systems. This meant that while becoming part of one country with China, Hong Kong would enjoy a high degree of autonomy except in foreign and defense affairs for 50 years. Somewhat similar to the previous status of Kashmir in India. So, as a result, Hong Kong has its own legal system, borders and rights, including freedom of assembly, free speech and freedom of the press. Hong Kong still enjoys freedoms that are not seen in mainland China, but those freedoms are widely thought to be declining. Activists have accused China of meddling in Hong Kong by issuing legal rulings that have disqualified pro-democracy legislators. There are also accusations that press and academic freedoms have been reducing. In March, China effectively expelled several US journalists. While most people in Hong Kong are ethnic Chinese, and although Hong Kong is a part of China, a majority of people there do not identify themselves as Chinese. They call themselves Hong Kongers. Hong Kongers know how to protest. They have protested for various reasons since the 60s. Now, the biggest protests tend to be of a political motive. While Hong Kongers have a degree of autonomy, they have little liberty in the polls, which means protests are one of the few ways they can make their opinions heard. However, the Chinese government has adopted a harder stance in recent years, particularly with any movement it views as a direct challenge to its own authority. In June 2019, protesters took to the streets demonstrating against plans to allow extraditions to mainland China. This time, clashes between police and activists became increasingly violent. The bill was halted and later fully withdrawn, but demonstrations continued for months with demands for full democracy and an independent inquiry into police actions. In April this year, Hong Kong police arrested 15 of the city's most high-profile pro-democracy activists for taking part in unauthorized assemblies. The street protests have mostly died down during the coronavirus pandemic, although some small demonstrations have started again as restrictions are gradually eased. Now, China is proposing to introduce a new national security law in Hong Kong. It says that this legislation is highly necessary and it would safeguard national security in Hong Kong. But the new proposal is also controversial because it is expected to be an obstacle to Hong Kong's own lawmaking processes. This has led to accusations that Beijing is undermining Hong Kong's autonomy. So, this is the reason for protests in Hong Kong. Hope this episode was helpful. Stay connected with us for more such videos. This is Nisha PS.